chased by the deep state, fighting for independence, thinking about revolution, looking for alternative solutions. The enemies of the deep state will tell you what others even don't dare to think. Manuel Ochsenreiter and Mateusz Piskorski.
Hello. This is the podcast DieGutenMenschen, Public Enemies of the Deep State, the first podcast of the United Church of Alexey Navalny, as it seems today. My name is Manuel Ochsenreiter. I'm editor-in-chief of the German news magazine Zuerst. And on the other side is the Navalny from Poland. Or no, I'm wrong. It's Mateusz Piskorski. I think you were longer in prison than Navalny, right?
Yes, hello. That's why I guess that we should now call all the governments of all over the world to sanction the Polish government, which was detaining me for almost 3 years.
Yes, absolutely. I was thinking about, but I mean, it's now, I had in the last days, I had some really divine experiences when it comes to Navalny, and I think many other Germans had as well. Did you see Navalny's interview with the BILD Zeitung more than a week ago?
I have seen several interviews of Navalny, including the one you are talking about. I have also seen a lengthy interview with Navalny for the Russian media, for the Russian opposition media as well. So it was really a wonderful experience to analyze what the guy is telling there, and to realize that the people all over the West, at least, and also some liberal circles in Russia, believe all that.
Yeah, and if I tell you, in Germany, if I would be the Dalai Lama, I would be now deeply worried about my stand, really, yeah. because now I wanted to tell you about the very first divine experience I had. I woke up in the night. And I said, I have to check. Maybe it was a call of the angels. I don't know. I was opening the computer and the internet, and I saw the interview with Navalny. And since you and I are part of the older generation, as you know, I tried to print the interview, and you know what happened?
What happened?
Nothing. It came white paper, and in this moment I realized I didn't print the interview. I printed Navalny's soul.
Yes.
But I mean, really, did you notice that this whole Navalny story is now having already a total religious, clerical, parallel Christian touch? Did you notice that?
The problem for me is primitivism, and which is the reason of my deep disappointment when it comes to, let's say, all the Western and European societies, yes? I mean, if you listen to that guy and what he's talking there about, you might become really shocked because, for instance, just to give you an example, in several interviews, he's claiming all over openly and seriously that it must have been the decision of Vladimir Putin himself, which is really shocking. Yes, the guy is claiming that he is almost the second most important person in Russia, or even the first one. And in the Russian media, there was also a very interesting question, although the guy who was conducting the interview was a liberal as well, but he was a little bit shocked as well, yes? And he asked Navalny, why do you think Chancellor Merkel met with you? And the answer of Navalny is that, well, she realizes that I'm an important guy and that I'm solving all the issues there in Russia. Yes? So the guy really seems, I mean, maybe it's because of his health problems, yes, yeah. But the guy seems to believe that, yes, he is another Dalai Lama.
Yes, but do you notice that this is really, we are now far from the field of facts. We are really in the field of religion. We have, you mentioned already both. We have Pontius Putin, Pilatus, and Maria Magdalena Merkel who are somehow active in the field. We have the Golgotha Mountain, which is of course the plane where Navalny went on. We have literally everything. We have the cross, the Novichok. We have the resurrection after death with the Charité in Berlin. And now Navalny's spirit is upon us and is giving us all these important messages, which are not supposed to be contradicted or simply there is no argument anymore possible. So Navalny is presented in the BILD Zeitung like someone who only can speak the truth. And it is bad and cynical to say anything else.
Exactly. You really cannot go into any kind of discussion, yes? Because, well, you can debate about reasonable facts. You can even argue about some opinions, but, well, there is a dogma, yes? There is a dogma in the Western media that the guy was really poisoned, that well, that the Russian secret services and special forces are a bunch of idiots, yes, because they even haven't managed to kill a guy with this famous Novichok. So that's very similar to the case of Skripals in
yes. And it
somehow the only difference is that the Skripals were not ready to become Dalai Lamas, and Navalny is willing and ready to become a Dalai Lama. Although I think that really what's shocking for me is that it's all quite relatively effective when it comes to the media. At least when I analyze the media in Poland, in some other countries, it works. It really works. I don't know how is it in Germany. I mean, do the people believe what he's talking about there in BILD, for instance?
Well, frankly speaking, I was not seeing any poll or any kind of credibility test about all these things. But you must take into account that BILD is Germany's biggest newspaper. Although when I say as a journalist now the term newspaper, I have always a little frog in my throat. It is hard to call it like this. I mean, it's a propaganda machine, and it always was. And I mean, this is the newspaper every single taxi driver is reading and later on talking with his passengers about. This is the newspaper in all the hairstylist saloons, somewhere out in all waiting rooms of doctors. The influence of this newspaper is highly big, and we have in Germany the figure of speech when it comes to German politics. If you make career by using BILD Zeitung, so that means if you go up the elevator with BILD, that means you automatically also go down the elevator with them. That means you sell literally not just your soul, but your whole social, material existence to this newspaper. There, it is quite influential, and no public figure can afford to have a too long scandal with this medium. So it is an institution. And when Navalny says in BILD Zeitung in a very prominent place that Germany should, for example, quit the Nord Stream 2 agreement because Putin himself wanted to poison him, Navalny, because Navalny is so dangerous and important, then it is indeed a very, very dangerous step. This is like, I would describe this medium and the whole publishing house, Springer Publishing House, by the way. I think they also own half of Polish media or so. So this is like a parallel government consulting organization. No one ever elected, no one ever can control, and they have, of course, their own agenda, and they are pushing for this. I give you just now one example. This interview, I strongly recommend to all our listeners to read this interview. I will put the link later on in the description of the video, because this interview is a kind of masterpiece of a PSYOP operation, not necessarily influencing the German population, but the German decision takers. I give you one example, which is very, very typical for such kinds of operations. Navalny describes his position in Russia like this. I'm now not quoting directly, just as I remember from the interview. He says, if there were now elections in Russia, he would win these elections, if they would be just. So, of course, you laugh, I laugh, and we say, oh, what a lunatic. I mean, he cannot. But the signal is something else. He says to the West, it is worth to support me. It is worth to support me, not some other oppositionals. You have to support me because I have the chance. And this is, by the way, a very, very similar parallel to what always happens when we have somewhere a color revolution or something similar. Just to give you one example, when in Syria in 2011 and 2012, the terrorists started to besiege Damascus and also the government quarters in Damascus, they gave non-stop the message that they are almost at the victory. And the message was not just, look how successful we are. The real message was, if you give us now air support, then we will manage it. So we have to see the Navalny interview in the same context. He doesn't say, look how successful I am. He says, I am worth to take all the risk that you support me in any kind of color revolution, in any kind of subversive activity against the Moscow central government.
I understand that, but I don't understand another thing, which is maybe not directly connected to the interview, but to the status of Navalny, Dalai Lama Navalny, in Germany. How could you answer the question why the chancellor of biggest European economy and country went to meet the guy which is let's say a small part of anti-system opposition of Russia?
Well, I think that has several reasons, and I think the less important reason for this might be the international relations. Let us be realistic. If Merkel is meeting Navalny or not, it won't worsen and for sure not better the German-Russian relations. But, I mean, we spoke already about this in former podcasts. Despite of all the rhetorics, especially from Berlin, well, to be fair, the things are, until now, by the way, right stable. So Nord Stream 2 wasn't cancelled until today. Although we were speaking about this topic, I think already since 6 weeks or even longer. So we have always, when we see the actions of Merkel, always to put on the other side of to balance it with the naked fact. So the naked fact is that nothing changed in the last 6 weeks. When it comes to the facts, we have now some minor diplomatic measures. As far as I saw, I think some diplomats were expelled, and Moscow will now expel some diplomats. But also, to be fair, this is what is happening now since, I don't know, 20 years or so. So these things are all more of symbolical nature. But for Merkel, it is very important. If you look in the structure of her own party, there is right now the fight going on who will be head of the CDU party, of the liberal conservative government party in Germany. And there are now really, we have this kind of pale liberal Falcons in Germany. You know the type of the character I'm speaking about.
Yes, of course.
Pale. I always call them. These are the pale liberal Falcons. For example, one guy is Norbert Röttgen, who is non-stop ranting against Russia, against Putin, and of course against China and against Syria and whatever. But of course, all these guys, they have a certain peer group of support in the party. And I think what Merkel is also doing by this is balancing this. So her the personal costs and the personal risks of meeting Navalny were maybe in her own political balance less than not meeting him. Because if she wouldn't have met him, maybe then some guys like Röttgen and so on would have non-stop said, yeah, you have to meet Navalny, and would have made, and BILD Zeitung also, they would have said, yeah, you have the obligation. So the meeting between her and Navalny, I would say, was almost without any kind of serious consequences. But for her own stance in these things, especially in the domestic policy landscape, was maybe important. Yeah. After the podcast, I will have to wash my mouth with soap and acid because I feel now like a defender of Merkel.
Yes, you sound so. And being not a defender of Merkel, and being a former politician, knowing all that schemes within, I can tell you just that she could just send there someone like, I don't know, this press secretary Zaibet, yes?
Yeah.
Or anyone just to pretend that she's paying attention to what is going on and so on, yes? She didn't have to go there personally because we are talking about Germany now. We are talking about a country which has a society which is not so vehemently anti-Russian or anti-Putin.
The greatest country in the world. I know. And it's sometimes hard. It's sometimes hard and a big responsibility.
Yes, really, it was shocking for me and for several other people. Yeah, that she decided to make such a move from the point of view of PR, of image. It's quite hard to understand. Being at her place, I would just send some official, of course, if there was such a pressure from the media and from some liberals. Of course, I agree with you. But it was enough to send a simple representative of the government, to visit the guy.
There, let me say, as a very cynical media realist, sending anyone else, as you said, like Seibert or just in quotation marks, just a minister, that would be a case which didn't take place, simply. So I think the situation was really only Merkel visit would take place, anything else wouldn't take place. And I'm very sure that Navalny had already before visits by, we would say, high-ranking officials, but this doesn't take place. So in Germany, if Merkel is doing something, it's taking place. If it is then already a lower, I'm sure that Heiko Maas was already very active and so, but that doesn't simply in the media theoretical pattern that didn't take place. Huh?
Well, we can only guess that according, by the way, to the Russian authorities, he had some lengthy and intensive meetings with the CIA representatives as well.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
They were probably the first ones who visited him in Charité hospital. So
I wouldn't even wonder if they would have been already in the doctor's team when they went to Russia. Yeah?
Exactly.
So
I'm almost sure about that.
I would go so far.
So, anyway, how long is Germany able to bear the presence of Navalny there?
You know what I really think? I think we can bear his presence for 30 years without any consequences. If there is someone at the tip who, that is, again, I feel so bad, like defending Merkel, but she has this talent, and that makes, of course, a lot of anti-system guys, especially from the right, totally upset that she has the talent to balance things by non-acting. Yeah, so by simply sitting and waiting.
It seems that she must be inspired by some some wings of Buddhist thought, I guess.
Yeah, like a Zen monk. Exactly.
Yes, or the Far East wisdom.
Yes, and I tell you, I would go into any kind of odd that until now any other chancellor might have at least debated Nord Stream 2 or so, but she simply listens and says yes, and oh yes, it's terrible, and oh god, and the Russian government tried to poison you, and then she goes back to the chancellery and does something else. So in a cynical way, she is maybe not even on purpose. Maybe it's her character. Yeah, I simply don't know, but. In that case, this character would, until this moment, I don't know what will be tomorrow or next week. It can change any time, but somehow this character is strongly supportive for the own German interest. Yeah,
I'm really waiting for a response. Of course, from the Russian side. Yes, I mean not the official one, because probably the Russians understand. I'm sure. Things you are explaining now about her behavior, but on the other hand, I'm really waiting for the first case when a very, very anti-system opposition politician from any country of the West, be it Germany, Poland, or anywhere else, comes to Russia claiming that he was poisoned or almost poisoned by his own government and so on. So I'm just now wondering who could be the first one, the guys from the German Communist Party or from the National Democratic Party of Germany, yes, because I think that they have the same support as Navalny has.
Yes. But you know what they say, asking the question is answering it. So you eat now just for 1 week a little bit expired fish tins, and then we do a big thing. Yeah?
Yes. So we are waiting for real opposition politicians to claim that they were poisoned, or someone tried to poison them in the West, and will find some safe place in a hospital somewhere in Russia, Iran, or China, I don't know where, yeah?
Yeah, and I see myself then sitting beside the bed and holding the hand for the international photographers.
Yeah. And by the way, there is one more paradox about all this thing, about all these media messages. On the one hand, I think that BILD as well portrays Russia as a threat to Europe, to the European security and so on. Yeah. On the other hand, BILD and the mainstream media like BILD in Europe, in the West, are trying to convince all of us, their readers, that the Russian secret services are so unprofessional, amateur, and so on, that they couldn't even effectively poison Navalny. Yeah? So this is a paradox and internal contradiction in their message.
Yes, the same media which says that all the oppositionals, also the bloggers and journalists and so on, they are not poisoned, but they are falling out of their windows and from the balconies, you know. so yeah, of course. I mean, the whole case is full of paradox. And just to close it, when we speak now about the case Navalny, we speak about the contemporary now situation. We don't know what will happen next week. We don't know what will happen next year when in Germany are elections and when, for example, the chancellery will change. These are all things we don't know. But when this happens, then this interview is still present in the internet, and the content of the interview is still present. So this is why I think one should take such things serious. And just the last sentence. you know that guys like you and me and many of our friends, that we are non-stop accused to be some kinds of agents of influence, right?
Yes, permanently.
But did you ever go to any foreign media and in some kind of, and say, hey, you have to sanction Poland?
Yes, that's
really?
That's a perfect idea to do so. I guess.
Yes,
For
but
me, personally.
But really, with all, I mean, I just can say about myself and what I know, with all my total, really fundamental disagreement with what Berlin is doing, and with all my disgust, I would never ask someone. It's like,
Of course, I agree. I mean, I can give you another example. You have the Belarusian counterpart of Navalny, Tikhanovskaya, who has just called for a general strike and general sanctions against the economy, so against ordinary people, yeah?
Against everyone, against all compatriots.
Against ordinary people. So I think that the message of Navalny, that he wants to sanction Russia and its economy, and he wants them to become unemployed and so on, yeah, that his message will come to Russia, and people in Russia will hear about that, what opposition they have. Although on the other hand, I don't think they need that, because anyway, the support, according to all the polls, I mean also the polls conducted by opposition opinion polling centers in Russia, indicate that Navalny is under 2%.
Yes.
Never more support than around 2%. So it's, of course, it's a guy. So actually, he's even under the level the NPD has in Germany. Yeah?
That has something to mean.
yeah. So nevertheless, of course, he will be used and abused by the guys who are sponsoring the whole project, of course, for some time, I guess. He will come to Russia, and he will try to present himself as a new Vladimir Lenin, coming to Russia, coming back to Russia as for
with the German gold.
Yes, for a revolution with the German gold, exactly, yeah. With a German train, perhaps, yeah. This time not with an airplane, but with a plane. Train traveling via friendly Poland and so on, yeah.
But my Polish friend, listen to me. Now I have to say something as some kind of self-declared official of the United Church of Navalny. You know, Jesus also started only with 12 followers. Think about before you ridicule the 1%.
Yeah? That's why we really appeal to all those fans of Dalai Lama to understand that there is a new Dalai Lama who is really someone definitely more charismatic than Dalai Lama himself, and to think about joining the Church of Navalny.
This program was presented to you by Manuel Ochsenreiter and Mateusz Piskorski, the hottest dissident who won't violate any time the global rules against racism, extremism, or any other bad isms.